Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Graphic Design is Fun podcast. My name's Dan. Hope you're all having a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're chatting with Ben Courtice, who you may know by the name Boring Friends. Ben is a super talented graphic designer and illustrator from right here in Toronto. Another Torontonian. Actually, Phoebe from the last episode, shout out Phoebe, she actually recommended I reach out to Ben, who I've been following for a while, but was just kind of too nervous to send him an email because he has a lot of followers on social media. But I did it. He said yes, and here we are. And we had a great chat. Ben's a super chill guy. We both play chess, so that's kind of something that we kind of connect over. Which, by the way, feel free to skip the first couple minutes of this because we just talk about chess. But I'm not going to cut it out because I like chess, and we're around the same level too. He's a little bit better than me, but we have that in common. We'll have to have a chess face off someday. Anyway, other than chess, we talked about how Ben got into design, which is interesting. There's kind of like two parts to his sort of story in terms of where he's at now. Ben has been working as a graphic designer for like 15 plus years. He worked at Shopify for the better part of a decade, and then around 5 years ago, started experimenting with drawing and kind of teaching himself how to draw, taking a drawing class, and kind of got into the more illustration side of things. And that's kind of just progressed over the years to where now he has this big brand. He's selling all kinds of cool stuff. You can buy his t-shirts and bags and phone cases and all kinds of stuff. He's got a huge social media following, but it's interesting to see where it started. And you can go, if you scroll down on his Instagram, you can see when he was just getting started with drawing and just kind of figuring it out and finding his style. One thing I love about Ben is he's a very kind of inspiring, very encouraging dude out there. Just encourage everybody to be creative, to give something a shot. If you want to learn to draw, if you want to learn graphic design, to just jump into it. And even if it sucks at first, it's okay. So really cool stuff, very inspiring, positive dude. I'm very happy that he was down to chat. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, here is today's conversation with Ben Courtice.
I didn't like, it didn't occur to me like from like our emails or from you reaching out, but as soon as you logged on, it immediately came back to me that I remember we did our office hours and you told me that you had like just started doing a podcast.
Oh yeah, okay, damn.
Because that was what, like probably a year ago or something.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been that long ago because I only started my podcast in the summer, but I remember it was you had just recorded your episode with Jesse Nyberg. So it was whenever that was.
I think that was like late summer, I guess. Sorry, my dog is like having a panic attack downstairs right now.
Okay. No worries. But yeah, no, that was cool. We mostly talked about chess, I think.
That checks out. Yeah, that sounds like a thing that I would monopolize all of your time with.
Yeah, that's one thing I've very much enjoyed following your Instagram is like your semi-regular, chess tips, chess updates. Dude, 1300, that's your current rating?
Yeah, well, it was when I posted that. I've slipped like 50 or 60 points since then. I knew it wasn't going to last, so I needed to. But it depends on like what time setting you're on, because because that's in rapid I'm 1300, but then in blitz I'm like 900. It's way harder on the quicker setting, and not because it's like harder to play it, but it's like the players that are on it are way harder for some reason and play way more accurately.
Well, blitz is a skill unto itself, like, and
totally. Just like bullet as well, which is like insane.
And no, I'm pretty bad at blitz, but I try to play a little bit because I figure it helps me when I'm playing rapid and I'm in like a time crunch, and I got to be able to just move quick. But anyway, I'm around like 1100 on a good day, rapid.
I mean, that's no slouch.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. But yeah, anyway, I don't know how much we can talk about chess before
Oh
everyone
man,
tunes out, but
all the users are just dropping off right
yeah.
now. But back on the subject of chess, I think tonight
Yeah.
they have that like chess night here in Toronto at like the Madison, I think. And I've been meaning to go for like a long time. It's like every Wednesday. My friend Cam and I've been meaning to go for like a while. And last night or not last night, last week we almost went and then we didn't end up going. And then I guess Magnus Carlsen was there,
Holy shit.
which for the uninitiated listener is like the best chess player in the whole world, hands
Yeah.
down. And so he might actually be there again tonight. Apparently he's like in Toronto for like a couple of weeks or something like that. So who knows if he'll show up again. But I think we're gonna go tonight, and we
No
wanted to
way.
go anyways, but we could just go fanboy over him if he is there.
Okay, that's wild. Is that the Chess in the Park group, or is that different?
I honestly don't know because I
Okay.
still haven't gone.
True, true. Because I'm in this Facebook group, and I think they do every Wednesday, and like they play in the park during the summers, I guess. But maybe they're, I don't know. Maybe that's the same. But I've never actually been. I've never been. I'm kind of too
Right.
scared to go because I'm like, I'm just gonna show up there and just lose a bunch of games and leave, or like I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I have no idea what the skill level is like at this
Yeah.
one. Because I was in New York for a couple months in the summer, and I found like a chess night there just by chance at like this cafe that I
Oh,
stumbled
that's
upon,
cool.
and I guess they had like a weekly chess thing. And then, you know, I had never really done like a chess night before, but just decided like what the hell, and just showed up. And like it's pretty low stakes stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, no one's there to like to be an asshole and make you feel like an idiot or anything. And it's kind of like, I mean, at least the one that I went to, it's like it's the whole spectrum of skill levels. Like it's people who've played like twice, and it's people who, you know, play it like extremely seriously and are just gonna like absolutely destroy you. But
Yeah.
you know, no one takes it seriously. Everyone's just there to kind of fart around and
For
get to
sure.
play in person.
Dang. Man, so you think you're gonna go tonight?
I think so. I have a thing later on tonight, which is also kind of chess related, which is funny, which like is a whole other thing. But yeah, it depends. Like I think if my friend who I was going to go with originally last week, if he's down, I might go this week because maybe I am just afraid to like show up on my own. Who knows?
Yeah. Dang. Okay, anyway, maybe let's move on from chess.
This is all getting cut.
Well, actually, okay, wait. First, quick question, and this will ease us into it. What is the name Boring Friends? Where does that come from?
Honestly, like I don't even really have like a that interesting of a story behind it, or like some deep meaning. Like it really is just, you know, like 5 something years ago when I started to like draw more and started to like explore this stuff more. I you know, I wanted a means of like you know, sharing the stuff that I was doing. So I figured I'd just like open an Instagram account. At that point, I was just making like basically like stick figure drawings and like little comics and like whatever. And I think I was just like sitting at a coffee shop and like decided to open up an account. And I think Boring Friends was just like the first like funny thing that popped into my head, and I was like, that kind of works. That's kind of like, you know, at the moment, I didn't really think that there would be any sort of weight behind it or that it was going to go anywhere or whatever. Like I just wanted,
Yeah.
the priority was just to like have an Instagram account, and I didn't really think about the name or that it would ever be, you know, an officially like registered business that sells products or like convinces clients to work with me
Yeah.
for money, but with the name Boring Friends. So um, it's really just some brain fart.
Well, I like it. But yeah, speaking of kind of you getting started and drawing stick figures, partly why I think this is interesting is like you talk a lot about making shitty art. That's like a kind of slogan you have, and actually the whole make shitty art contest I kind of vaguely followed, which I thought was super cool. But well, I think what makes it interesting is that yeah, if you go back on your Instagram page, I mean, no offense, but it was different. It was a different style. You were for sure finding your thing, and it
Yeah.
was, you
Yeah.
know, a
Thank you for
little
putting it
bit.
nicely.
Yeah, okay, you're welcome. So yeah, so can you talk a bit about kind of getting started? Was it more the graphic design side or more the drawing kind of illustration side that got you into it, or how did that all begin for you?
Right. I mean, like I've been doing the graphic design thing in one context or another for the last like 15 something years. Like, so I you know, I went to school for it. 100 years ago, which was I didn't specifically take a program for graphic design, but like that was sort of part of it, like graphic design and illustration and web design and that kind of stuff, and then 100 other different subjects. So got a bit of a taste of it through that, but then kind of left university with like little bits of information about like 1,000 different things, but not really sure what kind of direction I wanted to go in. And then, freelance for a little bit, and then got sort of my first graphic design job and did that for like a year. And then I went from there and got hired at Shopify. And so I ended up working there for, I always forget exactly how long it was. I think it was like 8.5 years, like super long time. But
Oh, wow.
the first like 3, I think, years that I was there, I was just doing coding. So I was just doing like front end dev kind of stuff, like worked on their theme support team. So did a bunch of coding, which was fine. And
is that something you studied, or was that something
yeah,
you
I mean,
kind of learned
that was
separately?
also part of what I took in school. And so I had like a knowledge of it, and I was decent at it, but I wouldn't say that coding has like ever been something that I've been like passionate about or anything. That would be like a huge stretch, but it was a means to getting in at like a pretty decent company, and like the work was challenging and interesting and whatever, but eventually hit a bit of a wall, because like if you're not passionate about something like that, you're only gonna like get so good at that certain thing, or like be so interested in the work before you kind of burn out. Like
Yeah.
I was going home to learn more about graphic design and like try new stuff with that, or try, or just be interested in like art and design and whatever. And I wasn't going home to like learn the newest JavaScript libraries or like whatever. It's just like never going to happen that way. So
Yeah.
slowly but surely made my transition over to the design team at Shopify. And so yeah, for the rest of my time there, I was like a designer on the marketing team. So all sorts of like, I think mostly started off by doing a whole bunch of like print work and like any sort of like in-person Shopify installation was, I would be on the team that would put that kind of thing together. And
That's
then
cool.
moved over to a little bit more like UX design, landing pages and social stuff and whatever, like just kind of a little bit all over the place. And that was all fine, but like also still not a thing that I was like going to be like super passionate about at the end of the day. Like UX design is fun and interesting, but didn't really like keep my interest throughout. So while I was there, I started getting back into learning how to draw. Like that's the thing too, is that like this entire time that I'd been a graphic designer, like working as a professional graphic designer, I was also like someone who could not draw. So like any type of illustrative work or anything that required something drawn was all stuff that I would just do like straight up on the computer. So like, using Adobe Illustrator and just like combining shapes and using the pen tool, whatever, which is fine and can like get you far enough. And you can certainly get away with just like only ever doing it that way. But I think I always kind of felt like it was a bit of a barrier for me, and like prevented me from doing stuff that I found to be like more interesting or more rewarding. So yeah, decided to like finally take learning to draw a little bit more seriously. And up until that point too, I just kind of, I think in my mind, I had always pictured like, some people can draw and some people can't. And it's like, it's just a matter of like, you're either born with that sort of like inherent ability, or your brain can more easily like take some sort of like visual subject and turn it into a drawing and put it down on paper, or your brain just like doesn't work that way, sort of case closed. But then I don't know exactly what brought me to the realization that didn't have to be like a limiting factor, but eventually I realized that like, no, like drawing is just like a learnable skill similar to, any other skill. Like it's just a matter of like sitting down and actually like putting in the hours and like getting the sort of muscle memory and the repetition and whatever. And eventually you can just kind of draw. Like I still feel like I'm like pretty amateur when it comes to drawing. Like I like a lot of stuff that I do like takes me a lot of not a lot of practice, but like a lot of rounds of revision and a lot of like retrying and retracing and whatever before something feels just right. Like I always feel like other people who've been doing this for a long time can just like pick something out of their mind's eye and just plop something down onto the paper and not think about it. Whereas for me, it's
Right.
like it's a slower process for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, compared to what I was drawing 5 years ago when I was sort of just getting back into it, it's, there's no real comparison. Like it's a huge leap. So
Yeah, man. I mean, I see what you mean. You always kind of see other people who are seem better than you, but and it's cool as a nice reminder, I think, just kind of to reiterate, like, yeah, it's a learnable thing, and like you can see somebody like you who makes dope stuff and makes a living doing it, and it's like, well, so like, a big chunk of this you just learned like in the last few years. Yeah, it's really cool.
yeah, I mean, like it doesn't take much, right? Like I didn't really go back to school to do this stuff. I didn't go in any intensive courses. I did a quick little like once a week drawing course at OCAD here in Toronto, like I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, just for fun, like essentially just to like try that out, and like got a little bit out of it. Didn't like take it too seriously, but it was enjoyable. But yeah, most of it's just like self-taught, self-learned. And
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of the thing with like the sort of make shitty art challenge stuff as well, is like kind of emphasizing to people that like the bar that you need to like pass in order to just be able to like make something that's like interesting and creative and that people are into is like not that high. Like you don't need to be able to draw like a perfectly proportioned and shaded like replica of like a scene that you're looking at in order to just be able to show off sort of like your interpretation of what you're looking at and what you find like interesting, and to like show the world what you're seeing like through your eyes, right? Like you just kind of need to be able to find a means of like properly expressing yourself, and that's kind of all that it takes. And then the longer you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and you're going to be more efficient. But it still is something that you can just like build up towards. Sorry, my dog is slamming up the stairs.
What's your dog's name?
Alfie.
Alfie. Is that
Yeah.
from a movie? What's that from?
There is a movie. There's two movies called Alfie. There's like the original had like Michael Caine in it, and then the newest one, which I think is a remake of it, has Jude Law. I've seen neither of them,
Okay.
and I named him 100 years ago after the captain of the Ottawa Senators, Daniel Alfredson.
Oh, true. Are you
Yeah.
big hockey fan?
I'm a decent hockey fan. I'm a big Sens fan. I've always been a Sens fan,
Are
which
you
is challenging.
from Toronto originally?
No, I'm from Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
See.
the giveaway, because
Yes.
you're not going to meet someone from you know Chicago who's like a huge Sens fan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Actually, I was going to ask you, like, in terms of like the learning new stuff, how do you feel that now that you have such a big following on social media, like less, or that it's more difficult if you want to kind of try something new or try out a new style, that you're sort of like, oh, well, a lot of people are going to see this. Like sometimes I think about graphic design students who already have a lot of followers who are really young, and it's I almost feel like maybe that is like limiting people from just like trying something out or learning a new thing, learning whatever kind of skill that they don't already have, because they have this kind of audience that's going to see it, and it's going to feel like a step down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be a challenge. Like I think despite having had this account grow like pretty substantially in the last like year or two, I still try to keep like enough of an arm's length from it that I like don't take it too seriously, and I don't feel like I'm being too like prescriptive about what it is that I create and why I create it, and making stuff that only falls in line with what people who are following me are gonna care about and are gonna like or whatever. Like I don't know, if I post something new like today or tomorrow and it's just like a really different style and it's a new approach to what I'm doing, I'm not going to hemorrhage like 60,000 followers overnight. Like people are just going to see it and they're going to like it or not,
Yeah.
which is already how I would describe posting something on there anyways. People are just going to like it or they're going to not. So I mean, I do think that, yeah, like tomorrow I'm probably not going to wake up and all of a sudden it's like a photo collage account or something like that, and just like all of a sudden I'm only posting this like brand new style or whatever. Part of me would like to think that I could just do that and just like switch gears and whatever. But realistically, I probably won't. Like, maybe I'll make something new and post it and just see what people are into, and then like slowly iterate towards it. But a lot of the time, it is that, like, through a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, it does change little by little. Like I
Right.
wouldn't say every single piece that there's something sort of like completely brand new in it, but there is a lot that I'm trying out as I'm going that is different from the piece I did a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or like I'm using. And I mean, I've kind of stuck to the sort of like pens and textures and like shading that I use, but even then, that's like something that could change and that could turn into something new. Um, but I do like to think like in terms of like composition, or in terms of just general like message or attitude or theme, or colors or whatever, that like I try to keep it fairly loose and experimental, and not try to like keep everything within this one specific box. Like I think it is really easy, um when you're an artist, and your main means of showing off what you're doing is through this like social media game. you know it is kind of like training you and training your brain in a way to be like, okay, well, when you make art that looks like this, you're going to get like this level of reward and this level of like positive feedback.
Right.
And so it kind of like nudges you to only make a certain thing because you know that you're going to get that kind of like reward from it. So I can see why people end up kind of making something similar, or sticking to like a similar style, or making the same thing over and over, because like they found a system that works, and they just want to like keep getting that type of feedback, and they want to like keep that sort of growth going. But I think for me, it's like I get too stir crazy. Like I got to just like try stuff, and like I get an idea that might be slightly different from what I normally do, or I don't know how it's going to land, or I don't know how people are going to respond to it. But I really actively try to like not care. Like I don't want to really give a shit about Instagram reception of the art that I make, because at the end of the day, like it doesn't really matter. Like it could be like the best thing that I've made in a year, and I post it, and like it just completely flops on Instagram. And at the end of the day, I also don't know whether did it flop because not that many people are using the app that day? Did it flop because Instagram changed their algorithm last night, and because I posted something with a frog in it, but last night they decided no more frogs?
Yeah.
It's just like not going to show anyone. Or is it because people like genuinely like weren't feeling it and
Yeah.
didn't
You
like
never
the
really
art?
know.
Yeah, I never really know. So what is the value of that type of feedback at the end of the day, right? Like, if I can't really derive any proper meaning from what people are telling me about it, then why should I tailor it to any of that in
For
the
sure.
first place?
Yeah, yeah. Like why pay attention to a metric that like for all you know is basically arbitrary.
Yeah, like I think at the end of the day, you should just be making this stuff for yourself. Like make stuff that you feel super happy with and proud of, and that you feel like you did a great job. And then the rest of it is all gravy.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned keeping social media at arm's length, which I like that phrase, but yeah, I mean, can you expand on that a little bit as someone who uh is definitely in it and succeeding, but at the same time I get the vibe from you, unlike maybe some other people, that it's like because I think you see people who really kind of get into it and they love the numbers and they love the game, and um that's cool too, but I think there's a certain level of like kind of like losing your soul if you're not careful type of thing that can happen, and you seem to balance that pretty well while still kind of playing the game. I don't know. Any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, like I try to. Like I should be clear that like I'm not always like an expert at approaching it that way either. And to sit here and try and say like that I'm just like a Zen master about whatever I post, and I don't care about whether it's received well, or whether some art that I made really like takes off, or whatever. Like you notice those things, and you take them into account, and it can be really frustrating when you make something and you put a lot of time into something and it kind of just doesn't go anywhere, like especially when you do tie some of like the rewards or like the reward center in your brain to being like,
Yeah.
it lets you convince, or sorry, like it the whole sort of system is set up to make you feel um like, you know, if you don't get the engagement and you don't get the likes and whatever, that you made bad art or that you did a bad job, right? Which is like not accurate. And so yeah, I mean, like I'm trying to like really articulate what my stance is on all of it, but it is kind of like constantly this game of trying to like remind myself that it truly doesn't matter, and that there really are like things that I'm making that like I'm really excited about, and that like I feel like I did a really good job on, and like though that type of reward is like a lot more valuable than like an extra 1,000 likes on Instagram, which don't mean anything at the end of the day. um but it can be tough, like especially, you know, with a platform with Instagram or with like TikTok. It's like making those videos can be a real pain in the ass. Like it's a lot of work to make some of them. Like they take like hours to put together, even if they're not that like complicated. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like it's a bunch of labor to like shoot them all and edit them all and like sync things up and add in titles and, you know, fucking write a caption and do the whole thing. And then
Yeah.
you have no idea how it's going to be received. And when it's, you know, when it doesn't take off, again, you have no idea why it didn't, because like for all those hours that you're working on it and you're putting it together, you're probably like really excited about an idea and you think it's going to be like really cool and people are going to be into it, and like you're kind of like partially daydreaming about like how much it's going to blow up, and you know you're going to be in the news, and then you're going to be invited on all the late night talk shows to talk about this Instagram reel you
Yeah.
made about drawing a piece of art. But then you post it and it doesn't really go anywhere. And either like the apps decide that they're just like not going to show anyone that stuff that day, or people aren't into it or whatever. And it can be really like just frustrating. Like you can feel like a real time sink with that type of stuff, because like,
Right.
you know, I'll be the first person to tell people to like, you know, don't work for free. Don't take on free jobs. Don't work only for exposure or whatever. But like at the end of the day, that kind of is what the
True.
deal
Yeah.
is
Right.
with these social media companies, right? It's like we're working for free in exchange for exposure. But even then, it's like sometimes exposure. It's like maybe exposure. So do all this
True.
work, and if you make something that could potentially make us more money, we'll give you a little bit more exposure. Which is crazy. And if anyone just like explained, like if a friend came to me and they're like, hey, I got offered this like job and they're only going to pay me an exposure, but they're also only going to pay me an exposure if they like the work and they think it'll make them some money. Should I take that job? Like, why would I ever tell someone to take that fucking job? Like,
Right.
that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. And I'm sure, I don't know what the pie chart of your typical day is, but like social media is a big chunk of time.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially with the videos and stuff. It's just like, you know, if I spend 3 or 4 hours putting a video together and then I launch it, like, hey, I'm probably pretty like creatively drained after I've made that and don't have energy to do other stuff. And then B, like, once it's out there and it doesn't do much, like I can't help but like in the back of my mind kind of be like, okay, if I had spent those 4 hours on like even just like sitting down to like make art or to fart around or to like grow in some other way, like wouldn't I have benefited from that like so much more than if I had done this stuff?
Right.
So yeah, I mean I think all of that kind of encapsulates why I really try to like mentally stay at arm's length from the social media stuff, because it is such a like poor barometer for like telling you how things are going or how your art is doing or whether people are into it or whatever, because it's I don't know, all of it is a complete crapshoot, and it's all kind of founded on this base of like manipulating people's brains into like using their platforms to make more advertising dollars. But unfortunately for a lot of artists, it's kind of like the only game in town if you want to show your stuff off and kind of get your name out there. Like that's the other thing too, is that like so much of my work and so many clients and also like customers from when I sell stuff come from, keeping this sort of social media ball rolling a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, I feel like I need to keep it up in order to like keep that other side of the business up as well. But like at the end of the day, like it's work. Like it's taking time doing stuff that like I don't often feel like doing, and doing work to make money for someone else to hopefully get like a little bit of extra work and satisfaction on my end.
Yeah, it's really cool hearing your take on it and your thoughts on it. And it's nice, I don't know, just that people are thinking about it, I think, because I think where it gets a little dangerous is when people just get sucked into it, and aren't maybe thinking critically about kind of how, I don't know, yeah, just what it does to people, what it does to themselves and their own whatever the hell. But I find it fascinating and something I think about, but kind of on the other side of somebody who like doesn't really. I like for a while I've basically just said, okay, I'm just gonna not really do social media. I'm not really gonna post anything. But I don't know, not necessarily a better alternative either, because like you said, there's pros and cons, and there's certain opportunities that it allows you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does also come down to like, your idea of success, or like your idea of what it is that you want to get out of doing this design stuff, or making art, or like whatever, right? Like if your whole measurement for success is just that you get like a bunch of attention and that you get a bunch of people liking your stuff on social media, and like that's enough for you, then like, yeah, maybe do the social media thing. But if otherwise it's to like, do cool work for like interesting clients, like you can do that stuff without having social media. Like you can just like make good art and make sure that, people in the right organizations know about it and see it, and then you're going to get to do that work. So it really depends on what you want to get out of this kind of thing, right?
Well, speaking of like cool opportunities, I was going through your page, and like when you were at Adobe Max, well, what was that, a couple months ago? Like that's probably the kind of thing that it's like, okay, this is kind of worth it. Like you'd play this game, and then but it affords you an insanely cool opportunity like that. Like the videos with people screen printing your shirts. I mean, um, anyway, I don't know why I'm saying it, but like how cool was that? That seemed like a really cool experience.
Of course, yeah, that was crazy. And like, and yeah, end of the day, like did those people who like got in touch with me about that opportunity, like did they find me because I like cold emailed their company? No, they found me because someone on that team follows me on social media, and they had the idea of reaching out, and then we made something work. So that's great. Like I said, like there are like lots of benefits to like doing well on social media in terms of like the attention that you're going to get, and that's a route to take. But it's also like just like a high cost to get in terms of like all the work that you have to do and the stuff that you have to keep up. But yeah, just in general, I mean, that opportunity was great. Like that actually was kind of like two separate things that kind of came together at once. Like I got reached out to by an agency last summer in like August, about doing that t-shirt stuff specifically. So they wanted me to like design a couple t-shirts that were going to be used as like swag for the conference. So I was definitely on board with that. But that was kind of like the end of the deal. It's just like I do the t-shirts, and that's it. I don't get to like go down there and like see it or anything
Okay.
like that, which was too bad. But I think within like a few weeks of getting that offer, I don't even know if I'd like finished the work. Maybe I had finished the work, but then anyways, but within like a small window after that, I got reached out to by Adobe directly, and not this like agency that works for them, but Adobe reached out, asking if I wanted to be part of their like Adobe Express ambassador team. So being able to like help sort of promote the Adobe Express product and that kind of thing, which I was all ears for. And then they kind of mentioned, they're like, and if you join, like, we can send you down to like different conferences and stuff we have going. And I was like, well, I have kind of a vested interest in heading down to Adobe Max. And they're like, yeah, of course, you can go
Wow.
to that. So they sent me down there for that. And then so that was, yeah, I mean, that was really cool. Like, even when I got there, I still didn't really know what it was going to look like what the t-shirt stuff was going to, like, I knew that they were using it for this like screen printing thing. People are going to be able to like screen print their own, and that sounded really cool. But I think even the day of, like the people at the agency said like, oh, like it's going to be just like a small booth, and it'll be like on the last day of the conference, and we'll be in this area. So I'm like, okay, like that's cool. That's kind of like what I expected. I'm excited to see it. But then like 2 hours later, like I finally walked into like the main sort of like atrium of the whole conference, and there was like this booth set up, and people are like screen printing t-shirts, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I guess someone else is doing it for the first few days. Like I wonder what they're making. Like I'll go check it out. And then I walked up and just like sifted through a couple of t-shirts. I was like, okay, hold on a second. And then like kind of like it was one of those moments where like all of a sudden like the room was like kind of spinning, and I like was very confused and excited at the same time. And then like there's like boxes full of like my t-shirts everywhere, and all these t-shirts on racks, and then like people screen printing my t-shirts like right next to me, and there's a lineup of like 100 people waiting to get their screen printed t-shirt. And then I started looking around. I'm like, oh, like everyone here is like carrying around, because that was the thing too, is that because they were all like freshly screen printed, people couldn't just like shove them in their bags or anything. They had to carry them around on the little like hanger for a while. So like everyone everywhere I turned is like hanging their t-shirt like off. They were in like a like a me poster
right
on them everywhere they go at this conference. And it was like, yeah, that was such a trip. That was like such a crazy thing. And it like, I absolutely would not have like understood the scale of that if I hadn't got to like go see it on my own.
True.
So I was really lucky that I was able to go down and see that. And then yeah, since then, like I've been able to do like a couple little pieces for the Adobe Express team themselves as well, which has been like really cool. So it's been really fun to.
What's
to work with
Adobe
them.
Express? Is that an app?
It's like it's their product that they use for. It's like a browser-based product for. Like the idea essentially is for people who don't necessarily have like the skills of using the entire Adobe suite, or necessarily even like have the Adobe suite to begin with, but still want to be able to make graphics pretty like quickly and easily. Like it's just like a really nice streamlined version of that. Like say you want to be able to make like an Instagram story, but you don't want to just like make it in the app and use like all the Instagram tools. Like you want to make something that looks decent, but you don't necessarily have all of like the Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever skills. Like they just make it pretty quick and easy to whip something up like that on your own,
cool.
and give you all sorts of options for what you want it to look like, and templates and whatever you need, really.
True. Well, now you're doing your job as a
Yeah.
spokesperson for Adobe Express.
Yeah, exactly. This is all a paid opportunity for sure.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So, are you going to other conferences or?
I don't have anything lined up at the moment. I've just been kind of busy doing my own thing here, so I haven't really even looked into it too much. But are there lots that are on your mind, like when you look at the start of the year and like the conferences that are coming up, are the ones that you sort of like bookmark and figure out whether you're going to check out?
I mean, I don't know. I've never been to a design conference. I'd like to. I know that there's a couple in Toronto in the next year, not Adobe ones, but I don't know what they are, but I've seen. I don't know. I have them kind of saved, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go. It like, unlike you, I actually have to pay to go to these conferences, right? So
I mean, that's the thing too, is that like, I think at one point, like, I had the opportunity to like buy a ticket to go to Adobe Max and to like fly to LA and the
right,
whole thing. And like, it's like that whole thing would have been like very expensive, like not cheap for me to go down and do that kind of thing. So yeah, conferences tend to be on the more expensive side for sure. And so yeah, you really have to make sure that if you're going to like drop that kind of change for like the ticket, and then like the flight and the hotel and all the expenses, like, you want to make sure you're getting something out of it. Like when I was at Shopify, we got to like go to conferences, and that kind of stuff would be paid for our, professional development, or we were there for literally for work, and we were there for that side of it. So I was pretty lucky with that kind of thing, but also kind of like got my fill of the design conferences as well. So I've seen a good number of them now, but there are some that are excellent. They got like great lineups of people, and you can learn a lot, and you can make friends. So they're worth checking out, especially if you haven't been to some.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think I'll have to go to something in this next year, and I think also could be an interesting opportunity to like meet someone and ask them to do this podcast. So,
yeah, of course. Like it's a good way of just meeting people face to face
yeah,
um, and getting them, just strong arming them to
yeah,
be on the podcast. It's easier if you meet them in person.
yeah,
Well, because
exactly.
you
Yeah.
had like Aaron Draplin on here like pretty early on, right?
I did, yeah, yeah. But if you started a podcast tomorrow and you DM'd him, he would do it. It doesn't.
I feel like Jesse Nyberg said the same thing because he had him
Yeah,
on it, where he's like, that guy just does podcasts. Like he's just
yeah, man.
he loves it, he eats that stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny with Aaron Draplin. He had posted like an Instagram thing of another podcast he did, and in the caption he was like, I don't care if you're like, the biggest brand in the world or you're just some dingleberry with a microphone, like I'll do your podcast. And I sent him an email and the subject line was dingleberry with a microphone or something like that. And but yeah, I think he just does them all, which is cool, I mean, he he's a character, so like
Yeah, well,
he can
actually,
talk endlessly, so
oh, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, when I did the Adobe stuff in the fall, like I had that like the booth of my stuff was like set up, and then like two booths over, like around the corner, was Aaron Draplin set up
Ooh,
with like
man.
all of his like insane setup of like 900
Yeah,
products and whatever. And he's there, and there's like a lineup of people just to like chat with him
right.
all day long. There's like a lineup of
Wow.
like 10 people deep, just like waiting to say hi or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did a talk there too, and I checked it out, and it was really fun. But the whole time I was kind of like, oh, I should like go say hi. I should go say something, because like he was one of the guys that I started like following. When I probably would have like still been at Shopify, but I was like starting to like try out some Skillshare courses and starting to be like, I should really get back into this like design stuff because I like
Yeah.
this a lot better and whatever. And I've kind of followed him ever since, and he's a good like sort of motivational figure and like a positive dude. But yeah, like on the last day that I was there, I wanted to grab a couple of things from his like booth anyways. So I thought like, what the hell, and just like grabbed a couple products, and then like went and just like said what's up and said hi, and said, like I used to follow your courses, and now I got this like booth around the corner because all of Adobe's merch for this conference
That's
is
cool.
mine. And he's like, oh shit. And then he's like, what's your handle on Instagram? And I said, Boring Friends. He's like, oh, I know you.
Wow.
And then that was like the weirdest, like he's like, yeah, I know your stuff, like he's already seen it around, and he already like knows what I do. And then we shot the shit for a bit, and he told me to stay the fuck out of Portland. So I said sure. And then we talked about like Toronto for a bit and whatever. And then he like followed me the next day, and then sent me like a really nice message and said like keep it up and the whole thing. So
Wow, man.
just like a cool, yeah, that whole week of like being down at that conference and just like experiencing all those things separately was like a pretty crazy whirlwind of like, okay, I think I can allow myself to feel like things are going well.
True.
Yeah.
That's a cool interaction.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of what you're kind of saying about Aaron Draplin, like you do a good job of that, because I mean at this point you have a really big audience too, and I feel like something that I appreciate is just this kind of like total openness. Like if you have a questions, just send me a thing and I'll try to help you. Or the office hours thing, it's this kind of very like welcoming, like we're all trying to figure this out together kind of attitude, which I love, and it's definitely kind of Draplin-esque.
Yeah, I think I just I think end of the day, I think it's just the realization, even when I was like kind of getting started with this stuff, to be like some of the it feels like too hard to find the answers to like some of these questions. You know what I mean? Like it feels like some of these things are purposely kept under like lock and key, or like everyone has to like keep their stuff to themselves and like do their own thing because there's only so much whatever to go around, like money or followers or
Yeah.
whatever the hell. But like that's really like not true. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of room for like everyone to be here, and just by like bringing people along for the journey of what you're doing, you're not gonna like dilute the stuff that you do, and people aren't gonna like steal your spotlight or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no benefit to like keeping people out from this kind of thing. And like I personally just think like the world's a better place if there are more people who feel like encouraged and confident enough to like make art and put it out there and have that art become part of whatever their lives or part of their community, or like, make some little pocket of the world a little brighter because they're creating it, right? So, if I can play some role in just basically showing people to be like, hey, it's this easy, like you can just do it, you don't need like someone's permission to start doing it, and you don't need to make sure you have 10 years of training before you start putting your work out there. You can just start making stuff. I feel like some people kind of need that nudge and like don't realize that it really is that simple, right? Because I think I kind of like existed in that bit of a like a bubble with this kind of thing for a really long time, where I didn't feel as confident to just either like put my stuff out there or to like reach out to other artists just with like questions, or to just to basically like get started on any of this stuff. Like it all felt too daunting and too intimidating, or that it wasn't my space and that I wasn't supposed to be there or whatever. But I think like once you start farting around with this kind of stuff and like start actually like putting yourself out there just for the sake of trying something out and to seeing what happens, like even for the stuff that doesn't go and doesn't work, I think you start to realize that like it's really not the end of the world when those things happen. Like it's actually not a problem at all. And realizing that it's like not that scary and not that crazy forces you to like go out and do it again and again, because that like, for every however many times that it doesn't work, some like really cool things are going to come up that wouldn't have otherwise if you didn't put yourself out there. So yeah, I think I just try to like nudge people in that direction in any way that I can. Like that's again part of like sort of what the make shitty art stuff is a trying to show people like 5 years ago I was making shitty art. Like it was just like me learning to draw and like putting it out there. And so all it comes down to is just like wanting to do it, just like wanting to create things. And B, also just like teaching people to like to make stuff without being like too attached to the outcomes, just like make stuff because like it feels good to like sit down and create something, even if you don't share it, even if it's not like leading you on some journey of like creativity or like anything for your career. You can just like sit down and make art, and then like you're probably going to feel a little bit better after you make the art. Yeah. Especially if you have the attitude of like I'm fine if it's garbage, because everyone's just going to like make garbage anyways. So who cares if I sit down and make some shit?
Hell yeah. No, dude, I love your message. I love your everything you're doing. I think it's awesome, and I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. I appreciate hearing all that. It's real nice of you to say, and thanks for having me by. It's cool to chat again.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Graphic Design is Fun podcast. If you want to support the show, you can share it with your friends, share it with your coworkers. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can leave a 5-star review. Any of those things helps a ton. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Oh, and you can follow on Instagram at Graphic Design is Fun. Yeah.